No one wants a fat girl, sir, but I can nurse the wounded. Her voice quivered as she said it, a quiet plea in a world that had already decided what she was worth. But that one sentence, spoken in the middle of a war recruitment hall, would one day echo through the lives she saved, and the one heart she healed. Eleanor Mavis had grown up in a small coal town in northern England, a place where soot blackened everything except people's pride. She was her father's only child, strong-backed and heavy-boned, helping him at the forge while other girls practiced piano or embroidery. She wasn't the kind men turned their heads for. Her body had always been round, her cheeks too full, her hands too rough. The village boys used to laugh when she passed. "You'd better stop eating those pies, Ellie." They'd shout. She'd pretend not to hear, but inside, every word carved another scar. By 22, she had stopped hoping for love. She told herself she didn't need it. But loneliness has a way of seeping in quietly, like cold through old wood. Then came the war. The year was 1915, and Britain was calling for nurses. Posters showed slim, beautiful women in crisp white uniforms, smiling as they bandaged wounded soldiers. Eleanor stared at those posters in the post office every day, her heart pounding. She had spent her childhood nursing sick animals, tending to her father's wounds, and reading her late mother's old medical notes. She knew she could help. So she went. The officer in charge barely looked at her when she stood before him. "We need capable women," he said gruffly, "but the work is grueling. Are you sure you can manage it?" Her voice trembled, but her eyes held steady. "No one wants a fat girl, sir," she said softly, "but I can nurse the wounded." The officer blinked. For a moment, silence filled the hall. Then he nodded. "Report to the field station at Dover. Let's see what you can do." Eleanor's first day at the military hospital was a blur of screams, blood, and desperation. Men came in on stretchers, boys really, missing limbs, coughing blood, whispering for their mothers. The smell of rotten medicine hung heavy in the air. She worked tirelessly, never resting, even when her hands bled from washing and wringing bandages. The other nurses, young, polished women from London, often snickered behind her back. "She looks like she should be in the kitchen, not here," one whispered. "Her uniform barely fits," another giggled. Eleanor pretended not to hear. But when she went to her cot at night, she cried silently, pulling the thin blanket over her head. Yet she refused to quit. She scrubbed harder, worked longer, and prayed more. Her weight, once her greatest shame, became her strength. When the wounded were too heavy for others to lift, she carried them herself. When men screamed in pain, her solid frame became their anchor. Her warmth, both in spirit and body, soothed fevered soldiers through the darkest nights. Still, no one praised her. No one noticed, until he arrived. Captain Thomas Harland was different from the others. He had been a schoolteacher before the war, known for his calm command and kind eyes. But when they brought him in from the battlefield, his leg was torn open from shrapnel, his face pale with pain. Eleanor was assigned to him. When she approached, he looked at her weakly and tried to smile. "Guess I don't look my best," he said. Eleanor smiled gently as she cleaned his wound. "None of us do, sir." He chuckled softly. "What's your name, nurse?" "Eleanor Mavis." "Thank you, Eleanor." From that day on, Captain Harland became her patient, and, unknowingly, her quiet purpose. Days turned into weeks. She learned his story, a man who had volunteered not out of glory, but guilt. His younger brother had been killed early in the war, and Thomas had joined to take his place. Now, broken and guilt-ridden, he felt useless. Eleanor listened. She didn't have fancy words, but she had presence. When he couldn't sleep, she stayed by his side, reading aloud from the Bible or humming old hymns. When pain racked his body, she whispered, "You're safe now." And slowly, she saw something she had never seen before: gratitude, not pity. Respect, not mockery. One morning, as dawn's light seeped through the tent, Thomas said quietly, "Eleanor, why are you here? You could have stayed home, safe." She hesitated. "Because I wanted to matter," she whispered. "People don't usually see me. But when I'm here, when I help, I feel like God does." He smiled faintly. "Then God chose the right one to save me." Her heart stilled. No man had ever spoken to her that way, as if she were enough. But fate, as it always does, tested them. The bombing came without warning. German planes roared overhead, dropping fire on the camp. Screams filled the night. Tents collapsed. Nurses scattered. Eleanor ran toward the explosions, not away. She found Thomas trapped under a fallen beam, blood pooling beneath him. Go, he shouted. Get out, Eleanor. Not without you, she screamed. Her arms trembled, but she lifted the beam, inch by inch, until he was free. Flames licked the ground around them. She dragged him out, coughing, choking, her uniform torn and burned. By morning, half the camp was gone. But dozens of men lived, because of her. When the army recorded the event, her name was mentioned briefly in reports. Nurse Eleanor Mavis displayed exceptional courage. But medals were never her goal. Months later, the war ended. The wounded were sent home, including Captain Harland. Eleanor stayed until the last soldier left. She had nowhere to return to, no family, no husband waiting. Then one quiet afternoon, as she packed her few belongings, she heard a familiar voice. Eleanor. She turned. Thomas stood there, in civilian clothes, walking with a cane. His face was thinner, but his eyes, those kind, deep eyes, still carried warmth. I've been looking for you, he said. She smiled faintly. You shouldn't have. I had to, he said. You saved my life. You saved me. She lowered her gaze. I only did what anyone would. No, he said softly, stepping closer. No one else could have done what you did. No one else would have. He took her hands in his. You once said no one wants a fat girl. But I do, Eleanor. I want the woman who carried me from fire. The one who saw me as more than broken. The one whose heart is stronger than anyone I've ever met. Tears blurred her eyes. Thomas, she whispered. You don't mean that. I do, he said firmly. Because I've seen beauty that the world doesn't recognize, and it's standing right in front of me. For the first time in her life, Eleanor didn't look away. She let herself be seen. They built a life together in a small cottage near the sea, she tending to the sick in their village, he teaching children again. Their home was filled with laughter, warmth, and purpose. People whispered at first, the brave captain and the big nurse. But soon, they stopped whispering. Because everyone could see what they shared was real. And on quiet evenings, when the sun dipped below the water, Thomas would sit beside her and say, You saved the wounded, Eleanor. But you also healed me. She'd smile and whisper back, and you taught me I was never broken. Final message. This is the story of those who feel unseen, those who are judged by the weight they carry, not the worth they hold. True beauty is not measured in mirrors, but in mercy. And sometimes, the heart that the world calls too much is exactly what saves it.